Voila. Okay, fabulous. Okay, hello everyone. Hi, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Kate ROLFE, as Annabelle just introduced, so I am a director of the Revels office, and I'm very excited to see you all today. Today's roundtable is called Beyond the Gift Shop, and we've got 45 minutes to think about what the museum gift shop could and should be in the near future. So we're going to think about what museum gift shops could be beyond the walls of the museum. We're going to consider its purpose, so moving beyond just a way to sell products and more as a tool for storytelling and supporting the brand of the wider museum. And also have a think about the role that it plays in bridging between creativity and commerce. So there's a lot of power that shops have for museums, and we're going to find out a little more about them today. So I couldn't do it without my very extraordinary panel that I have sitting around me. So starting off, we have Judith Mather, is Buying and Merchandising Director at the National Gallery, an ex-colleague of mine, so it's lovely to have her here. Judith is going to lead us through the world of international pop-ups. She's going to help demystify this highly valuable platform for taking your museum gift shop on a journey in a similar way to you would an exhibition. Sitting next to me here, we have Tony TREMLETT from Outernet, Arts Managing Director. We were interested to see the other side of a partnership that you might explore with your retail gift shop, and we'll be hearing a lot more about Outernet and what they do and how they might work with museums. So thank you, Tony. Then we have Josephine CHANTER from the Director of Audiences at the Design Museum in London. Josephine's going to inspire us with a story that shows why creativity is essential and the role that retail can play in this on behalf of museums. And last but not least, we have Jeanine AALFS, the retail manager at the Tropenmuseum Amsterdam. And Jeanine has going to talk us through her latest product, which had a huge impact on the museum beyond the role that retail might otherwise. So thank you so much for joining us. So hold on, let me just get my clicker here. We're going to start off with Judith, who's going to talk a little bit about Shanghai Metro and a couple of other pop-ups. So Judith, the obvious solution for going beyond the gift shop is to physically take your shop somewhere else. But often that's quite a complicated thing to do. Can you tell us a little bit about it, sort of logistically, practically what went into delivering something like this?
Okay, so a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, we identified an opportunity in the Far East. We'd seen a lot of visitors coming from that region, and the appetite for Western European art was very, very high. We engaged a licensing agent in China because you need boots on the ground. Not only is there language and cultural differences, you really need to get people who can understand those nuances in those areas. So we overtook a corridor in the Shanghai Metro, and this was a representation of all our artworks. It was there for a month. We had 200,000 visitors a day. So it was about 6 million people walked past this. And it was basically a marketing and a brand awareness campaign for our other licensing program in that region. So it was just, so what this did, it was just replicas of the art. We had sort of like props, as you can see from this Monet pond. And we had QR codes that were linked to WeChat. So you could buy product, but also learn about the artworks. And we showed almost of our masterpieces in this corridor. We also sponsored, well, didn't sponsor actually, we sold the equivalent of Oyster cards. We sold 3,000 of those. We wish we'd made more in 2 days, which again represented the artwork. And as I mentioned, it was just about making it more visually pleasing, getting the brand out there, getting eyes on what the National Gallery London is all about. Obviously, the sunflowers, very iconic painting, but it's just about sort of, really sort of getting the story of the National Gallery out in that region.
And I'm interested, was it a purely retail initiative or were curators involved as well?
It was originally a retail initiative, but with anything like this, it was new, and so we did get curatorial support. We did some workshops and lectures in Shanghai. We did one at the Shanghai Academic School of Fine Art. where we had 100 students, where a curator came out and spoke about the gallery. We also did another session in a museum, privately owned museum in Shanghai, which with that we invited potential licensees and brand owners to understand all about the gallery and the provenance and the storytelling behind our pictures.
And I think for a lot of people that would love to do something like this, they're just put off by the cost and the complexity. How do you weigh up the pros and cons of doing something like this?
So the way we set this up, it was through our agent, and they invested in a marketing spend, which we agreed in the original contract. And we took a hit on the royalty rates on the products to weigh that up. Okay. But it was a win-win situation because they were getting the marketing out there. We took a small hit on the royalty rate, so it was a partnership.
Yeah. And you mentioned briefly there, working internationally, having to think about different cultures, and you've done other pop-ups, I believe.
We did another one in China. We did a pop-up in Guangzhou, in a shopping centre, which again was very interactive, just replicas of the paintings, and also opportunity for people to dress up like the paintings. So this element of storytelling, very simple. The Arnolfini portrait, I don't know if you know it, by Van Eyck, is very, very popular in China, and our audience love dressing up as that. So it doesn't have to actually be pure digital. This is replicas with just added drama and theatre and things like dress up and things like that.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Judith. We'll come back to this because I'm sure people will have some questions on it, and it's such a beautiful example of how you can take what is essentially a retail initiative and make it a brand ambassador across the world. So thank you so much. Yes. Josephine, your example was a little bit closer to home for you in South Kensington. So I absolutely love this example of the supermarket that we're going to hear a little bit about. We do have a video, so I'm going to see if we can make the video work. Let's see if it will play for us all. Yep, just give us one moment and we'll have the video play. Can you hear that? Yeah. I absolutely love this example. When it came out, I was so pleased because for me it was sort of a protest about why we couldn't go to museums, and we saw similar things happen in other European cities. I love the fact that it supported young designers, but also it really was this perfect combination of your charitable, artistic and commercial activities. So given all of that, what was the initial driver, and did it achieve the ambitions that you wanted it to?
Yes, we did the project back in early 2021, and it was, an exceptional time for museums. We were mostly closed. We've been open and closed, over the period of kind of over a year. So we were approached by Bombay Sapphire, who have a mission around creativity being essential, and this idea that, how could they help us open the museum through a retail environment when the museum was closed. they brought the idea to us and we were immediately very nervous. And I think any idea that makes you immediately very nervous is usually a good one. So we were like, well, what will the government think? What will our audiences think? Don't really have time for this. We're in a pandemic. How are we going to get anyone there? And, all those sorts of immediate kind of nervous sort of cautionary thoughts and risks came to mind. But there was something in it that was just very charming and generous and interesting, and fortunately our director really seized upon the idea and actually thought, if we get behind this, it could be really special. And I think what was the interesting thing for the project was that we worked on it across the museum. So it was our curators, our director, our comms team, our retail team. Usually our retail offering is just the retail team working on it. And for me, it showed what an institution can do if its total focus is its retail space and its commercial output. And it may be the only time that the Design Museum works in this way. But I think for us, it was a really interesting model to see what we could achieve if we really look at this space and this output and use all of our collective imagination and energy to do something different.
I think that's really interesting. I'm a huge advocate for sort of what would happen if a museum just focused on one thing for a day and got everyone working behind it. Yeah. And it's a sort of very design thinking type thing, so it's very good for you. I mean, obviously you're juggling a lot of people with that, and you have a key sponsor. And I know a lot of people that are doing projects like this. Juggling those kind of external partners can also be, a bit of a hurdle to overcome.
Yeah.
Were there good bits, bad bits?
Absolutely. I mean, what they brought was resource. I mean, as a small museum, our ability to be able to do things at scale quickly is really limited, and they had production people, they had advertising agencies, PR agencies. They brought the huge might and value, and I suppose our role was to really make sure that the integrity was there, and the creativity, and the value for our brand. And there were definitely points of tension, and really honing the narrative and aligning what we wanted, but also because we were doing it so rapidly. I mean, it sort of came together in like 8 to 12 weeks. It was incredibly fast. We also knew it was going to end. So there's that sense of, we'll get to the finish line, we'll open the shop, it'll be there for 5 days, and it'll either be amazing, or we can, use this as that kind of moment we had in the pandemic of experimentation. It was just one of those things that, didn't pan out. And for a museum to be able to take risk, I think is just so exciting. And that's what this project really did for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm curious because, obviously you were using retail as an audience engagement tool. Is that something you think you could do more of? Do you think there's a role?
I think as a design museum, we inherently believe in the consumer and retail and entrepreneurship. So I would say probably on the museum scale, we're more comfortable with it than most museums. And I actually see it as potentially a very high learning outcome if you feel like you actually want to part with your money to buy something because you now understand that product and what it means and how it's going to fit into your life. Yeah, that's a design learning outcome. So there's still work to be done to align our retail offer with our kind of curatorial and mission. But I think it's through projects like this that we break that open. And since then we've got an Amy Winehouse exhibition that's closing next week, but we did an Amy Winehouse pop-up store that was kind of a complete takeover again, and just showed that we can create these immersive environments. And that's what our visitors really want. They want to be immersed in a world, whether in an exhibition or a retail space.
Absolutely. And I think those two things are going to continue to sort of evolve and develop together, exhibitions and retail, and be another outlet for sort of creative expression.
Yeah.
So fantastic. I love it. I hope we see more. We'll move on to Jeanine. So you had a similar experience of a retail idea making a huge difference to the museum. I'm just going to click through because we have another lovely video. So we're going to hear about the Tropenmuseum's unwrapped product. So I'll start with the video and then we'll talk about it. So if we can play this with musubi in Japan. And I went to this exhibition lately and it's fantastic. Yeah, thank you. Let's see if it plays. Yes, the idea behind the exhibition is about gifts and gift exchange, gift wrap. And this particular item is a beautiful piece of Japanese fabric, which is used to... Oh, just go back to that. No, not working, that's fine. So we'll just describe it, if that's all right. So, there we go. Can you describe to us then this product and the exhibition?
Okay. Luckily we saw the
Oh, I think is your mic?
the screen has to come.
Hold on, sorry, just... Do you want my mic? Oh, there we go. Oh, it will just load up now. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, here we are. Yeah.
Okay. Luckily, the idea was to see this video, and you could see you hear it? Yeah. Furoshiki, this is furoshiki, a Japanese wrapping cloth. It was the perfect ambassador for exhibition Unwrapped we had in Tropenmuseum. In this exhibition you could learn more about giving and receiving presents. In the exhibition of this Gift Unwrapped, visitors will find an enormous installation of a furoshiki where you could really enter. You just saw it in the video, the still. And it was developed in collaboration with Musubi, and Musubi from Kyoto. They are the leading Japanese manufacturer of Japanese wrapping cloth for over 80 years. So together we developed this furoshiki especially for this exhibition, but also when you enter this exhibition, you would literally, could go inside this whole furoshiki and learn more about this wrapping technique. So it was really wonderful.
You were explaining to me that the product itself just got sort of huge attention. It really resonated with people. What was it about it that got to people?
Yeah, I think during the months November and December, it was like in every magazine and newspaper and even on national television for 5 minutes or something. So we had to explain this wrapping trend. And it had to do, in my opinion, that it also is a sustainable product. So it's a sustainable way of wrapping products and a sustainable way of, actually also a bag. So, and also because it's, probably because it's how do you say? I think it's the sustainable packaging trend. That people like, you can reuse a furoshiki, so you don't have to throw it away. So
it's a really lovely item, and I suppose obviously it had all of that PR value. Ultimately, would have helped the exhibition and the museum, and it's essentially a retail product at its heart. What was the reaction internally for the product getting such attention?
Yeah, I think the marketing team and the online team, they were really surprised because it was only one product of many. And only this product got about like 5 million touch points in media. So it was really a lot for product placement. So it was not a special pop-up or something, it was just a product. So and we know we can do more with those things. So if the product really resonates, the exhibition and the content of the exhibition, you can really, it's like an ambassador for your museum and for the exhibition. So that's really great.
And I really love that you describe it as an ambassador for the museum. Yeah. What would you advise other museums to do to make their retail offer work harder as an ambassador?
Yeah, I think also when you develop products, stay as close as possible to the mission of the museum, but especially to the content of the exhibition. So, and try to think, like the museum shop is like an extension of the experience of the exhibition. So, and you can deepen, knowledge and experiences in this shop because there's time to learn and to meet the product and bring it home and try it and
Yeah.
So that's kind of an ambassador. So you bring home something from the exhibition. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think what's so nice about the 3 examples that we've already heard is it's really showing how retail shouldn't be separated off. It shouldn't be a kind of separate team. Like it has a real creative value, obviously reputational value, and your retail teams are as expert in your audiences as your marketing team, in different ways.
Yeah.
So it's really, really encouraging. The exhibition is still on, I believe,
Yes,
if anyone's
it's
in
still on.
Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Definitely go to check it out.
Yeah.
So we're now going to move to the non-museum friend on the panel, although obviously an art curator and very well versed in everything we're talking about. So Outernet is it's a property area. It's being built in London, a retail area. So we're going to learn a little bit more about it and then sort of see how it fits into the mix that we've been discussing. We do have another video up. We'll see if it will work. I'll just slowly click through to it. So let's see if this... and it's quite a long video, so we might sort of see how it goes after a minute. But it's a very good video if we can get it to work. No, oh no, what a shame. Oh, I'm so sorry about these videos. Okay, we're going to have to do a good job of explaining it then, Tony.
Yeah, it's a shame. Oh, I can hear myself. It's a shame the video isn't working because this is a project that no one else has really seen, and so there was a good visualization. But I think there was some great crossovers between the panel already, and I think in terms of the kind of public pop-up spaces of Judith and the very immersive environments. With the Tropenmuseum and the Design Museum, and I think what Outernet is doing is adding a dose of digital to all that, and I know that we're very much stepping into that world often, whether it's through our phones or through the the development of the meta and things like this. But without being virtual, it is very much about stepping into a room which is completely digital and asking what we can do in that room, or what a retail opportunity, what a retailer could do in that room, what a brand could do that, what an artist can do in that room, or what a museum could do in that room. And so the Outernet project is a £350 million project that's emanated around, or the idea germinated 30 years ago, but in the last 5 years they've been building it. And it covers a 250,000 square metre footprint in the centre of London on Charing Cross Road and Tottenham Court Road. It has an estimated average footfall of 400,000 people a day, primarily based on its unique location next to Oxford Street. And also it's directly opposite the Tottenham Court Road station, which soon will have the Elizabeth line, also bringing people both from internationally and across London to the district. And it's essentially made up of 3 main digital spaces, the largest of which you can see in front of you. This is a 360-degree immersive space. It's about 4 stories high. The windows that you can see there, they actually shut and open upon demand. And when they shut, there are screens on the inside of that too, so it suddenly becomes 360, or they can open up to the public. And the screens are up to 32K resolution. This entire project actually has the largest amount of single pixels in the world all in one spot. And it's rigged up with high-fidelity speakers. It's rigged up with LiDAR cameras behind the screens, which means the content on the screens can move with the people in the space. And it's got atmospherics, from changing the climate in the space through to changing the smells in the space. I think so. It's a fully immersive environment, and we are the sort of testing ground to see how retail and how museums and organizations can play with that. Now, traditionally, brands are going to come in there, high-end commercial brands, and your fashion industry and tech industry are going to explore that, especially with the sort of it requires a certain amount of funding to be able to orchestrate something like this. And in that regard, it's going to be a very commercial space. But I run the Outernet Arts program, and the Outernet Arts program is going to be locked on every Sunday, a program that invites artists, both established and emerging, to do something on these screens. So we seek partnerships and sponsorships to try and support that. Essentially, the motto a little bit, I think, is instead of inviting audiences to take away a product, it's also taking away an idea in this case. And so there are other spaces across the district. This is the main space you're looking at where we will do our exhibitions, but there are other smaller, again, immersive environments, some more intimate, some there's a corridor area, 2 walls and a ceiling. and they're all alleyways within the district, open to the public, open to commuters. Commuters will pass through the district, going from one street to the other, and it's steeped in a big history of the Denmark Street history, which was the kind of center point and the ethos behind a lot of the music. Or there's a venue beneath the building as well, with a 2,000 capacity venue, which will be the first venue of that size ever built in central London for the last 50 years. And so, yes,
Yeah.
I think there's a quick summary or
I mean,
summary.
it's huge and it's immense, and I think it's kind of very difficult to not slightly fall in love with it as an idea. And I'm sort of very excited to see it come to life. I mean, obviously, with museums, you know, budget's an issue. You know, logistics can be an issue, but also they've got this vast power and amazing content. So what would a museum need to bring to you as part of a partnership to make it attractive on your side of things?
I think from an Outernet Arts perspective, being that Sunday orchestration, we're very interested in filling up the rest of the district with like minds, whether museums, galleries, other kind of art-related endeavors, and trying to think about the way in which, I mean, there are so many ways that you can go around these spaces, because if you think of it literally like a sort of classic transactional retail space, like a gift shop, you can bring that gift shop in. You can bring your objects in and your goods in, and you can sell it right there in front with all the screens behind you. Or it can be a place for data exchange and data value, where you can you could put QR codes on screens, get some subscribers in, start talking to the public about how things matter to them in regard to your museum. Or it can be about an immersive, much deeper and more immersive experience, about, you know, allowing stories to be told. I mean, I've always thought it might be interesting to see what was in the archive of museums that never gets seen that you could do. Or thinking about exhibitions, amazing exhibitions that were sold out and people could never see again. And here you have this chance to kind of engage with that and reanimate that and rethink about that. I think at the heart of Outernet Arts is not to go too digital. Everything is going to be digital, and it's almost like bringing it back to saying, well, let's remind ourselves of, you know, Meta is all over this, and NFTs are all over this, and the whole on a Sunday, it's kind of bringing it back a little bit and grounding it a bit away from that. So I think museums, their archives, and the things in them are an important part of.
I think that's really interesting. And in fact, Jeanine, that's made me think about the Tropenmuseum with their pop-up railway museums. Some partners of mine, Northern Light, ran that with the Tropenmuseum, and it was literally taking archive, inaccessible collection items and making them accessible on their commutes on the railway station. So it's a very, you know, I loved seeing that idea progressing here.
You could kind of re-envision both the gift shop, the Bombay gift shop, a supermarket, and your lovely Unwrapped exhibition in this environment a little bit, and see what the challenges are. And, you know, there are school kids going through there at 9 o'clock in the morning. You could do something different at that time. And then at midday, you've got commuters coming in to walk through with their lunch. You could change it up a little bit, add another element to it. And so everything is very durational, very time-based in that sense, not static. And I think there's a lot to play with and explore in that.
Sort of using the same techniques as advertising, online advertising.
Yes.
But for art and for good.
Yes, it very much is. But I think there's a certain opportunity. As a curator and someone who's worked in the art world for a long time, this was a sort of dancing with the devil moment. But I think that there's also a weird opportunity, and if not, maybe insurgents to try and do something different for the arts, play with it and do something and explore that.
And I like the fact you've got a kind of curator's eye on this. I think that's really important.
The program is our backbone, and the program will be. We're working with some very established artist names, and they're not always digital. Artists who are ready to explore other mediums, like explore the digital, having come from painting or sculpture and otherwise. And you know, our neighbours are our best friends, so we're going to start talking to you guys outside of this conversation.
Looking at the National Gallery.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of opportunities to London's a very important place for art, and altogether we're part of that.
Absolutely. And I think this is obviously a very experiential initiative. Do you have any final thoughts on how museums and particularly their retail might embrace experiential in a similar way?
I think it requires a certain leap to get into it, and I think that we are entering, whether we like it or not, this sort of slightly digital and virtual worlds, and I think that it's perhaps important for museums and everyone to maybe test that ground, and this is a great testing place for that.
Yeah. And I think what's really interesting about that is actually the other 3 examples we've had today have all been very live, very tangible, and it's interesting to see how those 2 worlds will collide and sort of support one another.
Exactly, and I think this, back to the physical, they're rigging systems from the ceiling if you want to hang things. You can build walls in the space to hang paintings and photographs. So it's a kind of space to do what you want in that sense. And with screens as a backboard.
With screens, absolutely. We're going to move on for some questions now. If anyone does have a question in the audience, then do wave at me, and I'm going to kick us off with a sort of additional follow-up question, but do pop up your hand if you would like to ask anyone a question. I'm interested from everybody in terms of practically what a museum could do. A lot of the time when we talk about what's next, it sort of seems very big and expensive and international, but also there's a lot of interest in engaging with local audiences. Who's got any thoughts on how you might do something that's a bit more kind of closer to home? And obviously, South Kensington was right on your doorstep, but has anyone got any thoughts on that?
I think we have a UK programme where we're taking pieces of art all around the country. We had an exhibition just during pandemic called Artemisia, and we took the painting to a doctor's surgery, a library, a prison, and there was all different things like that. So it's about engagement, not only in London, but in the wider part of the UK and international as well.
Yeah, and that's quite interesting because potentially you could take one opportunity that is amazing in a local library that might also be amazing on the other side of the world if you're kind of clever with how you plan it.
Yes.
Is there anything, Jeanine, in Amsterdam, is there anything that you're noticing that people want on a more local level? I mean, I suppose what engaged everyone in your product was the fact it was kind of a very kind of Dutch initiative and it's sustainable. And do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and because I'm not so...
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
In terms of like exhibiting art outside of the museum, or do you mean...
or anything that might engage,
collaborations.
be a bit more locally orientated rather than having to kind of be big and international.
We always try to collaborate with local makers, local designers, local communities. So, for our museums, there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
One of the things, the trends we really saw during the pandemic was people wanting to give back and to also help out as consumers and visitors. So we set up a scheme called TicketMate. So when you buy a ticket to the Design Museum, you can gift a ticket. And then we work with local charities to distribute those tickets. So it means if a local young people's group want to visit, we can gift them tickets. And it just allows the museum, and we're 93% self-funding, to reach out to communities and offer access in a way that is financially sustainable to us as well. So that has been a really great framework for us, which we're going to continue. And we've got a football exhibition coming up, and we'll be giving away tickets to local football teams, and it's just going to be great fun.
That's really, really nice. Excellent example. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions from the audience that they want to ask our panel while we're all here together? I've just put some contact details here because if the question comes to you later, then you can always drop me an email and I'll make sure it gets to one of our lovely panel. Any questions? Yeah? Oh, we have one question.
Thank you. Yes, that's a question about the Outernet program. This project, I would like to know how it is funded. I mean, where does that project come from? And also, when you work with a museum, for example, what kind of understanding do you have with the museum? Or like, yeah, is it a partnership? Is it something that they have to pay for at a great cost? I mean, just on the money front a little bit, yeah.
Outernet is essentially a media company. So it's selling media, space like Piccadilly Lights or a bus stop advertisement. And so what they're selling here is they're selling the spaces, each of these spaces and each of the screens or portions of the screens, etc., etc. So that's how they make their money. Outernet Arts, on the other hand, is independent. We look for sponsorships to raise money for the program. We are given the space for free, so we don't rent it off Outernet London, but we need to raise money to the technology, the content, etc., etc. So we're somewhat self-funded in that regard, looking for sponsorships. And when it comes to working with museums, it's in my interest, as well as my colleagues, our interest is the public interest, and I think museums have in a similar case, it's the public interest. So it's in our interest to work with museums, especially on a Sunday with those neighbours. So it's much more of a partnership situation. However, it's also a case of trying to find a balance when, let's say, some media space is not being used or is not there. Then we can say, right, let's try and configure a situation that makes sense. There are costs involved in putting content onto the screens, depending on what you want to do. So it's a kind of balancing out and negotiation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the question. Very, I'm sure it's what everybody was thinking with a lot of these, so thank you. I believe we've run out of time, so just thank you again to our wonderful panel for joining us, and thank you all for listening, and do get in touch if you have any follow-up questions, and I'll make sure you're connected with the panel. Thank you again.